Hello, Professor Vernon Mortensen. Sorry, guys.
Yeet, yeet. Okay, let's go. Talk loud so you can hear.
Yeah!
Picture this. It's 2011.
The last Harry Potter movie has just been released.
Duets with male rappers.
And female singers are dominating the pop market.
Ugg boots are in fashion, people.
Adele is on the rise.
Osama bin Laden is dead.
And planking.
So much blanking.
All of this happened in 2011, but one large, massive thing happened in 2011 that a lot of you probably don't remember.
The great Sony hack.
That's right, April 17th through 19th, PlayStation Network, owned by Sony, was hacked, and millions upon millions of private informations and credit card informations were at risk of being stolen. So, Sony did what any logical company would do, and they shut down all of the PlayStation Network. However, they also waited 3 whole days before saying anything about it, leaving all of their customers in suspense, dying metaphorically. They had to go outside.
Oh, poor. Now for you gamers, you must understand the frustration of what this means. You stopped in the middle of the game. Your stats may be ruined forever. Some of you may even remember this hack. Let's see hands if you remember this hack. I know you have. Yes. But for those of you who are not gamers, let me try to put it in terms you may understand. Imagine if it was Netflix or Hulu just shut down out of the blue, nowhere, complete abyss, total silence. You are 1 episode away from the season finale. You are left on a cliffhanger. Will he die? Is she gonna kiss him? Who knows? And guess what? Radio silence from the owners of these big companies. You don't know why. You don't know what's happening. You don't know how long it will last. You don't know what the future will hold for you.
However, April 22nd rolls around, and Sony finally releases a statement that says that external intrusion has affected their systems, and that they had to shut down to conduct a thorough investigation and to verify the smooth operations of their network. However, this was small news and much too late because all the customers were pissed off at that point. And many of them just kind of assumed that PlayStation Network was going to be up the next day since they released a statement. But it wasn't.
False.
Yeah.
Because guess what? April 26th rolls around and it is revealed that 77 million people have been affected by this hack. And it is revealed that it is the second largest hack in history to that date. The first was Heartland's payment system, and it had a hack where all of their credit card information was released. But the sad part about this PlayStation Network hack is that it included all personal information. I'm talking names, addresses, email addresses. Oof. Personally, I would have preferred if they just stole my credit card number, because guess what, people, you may or may not know, but your credit card company will pay any fraudulent charges you have on your card because of how common credit card fraud actually is. So I would much rather someone using my card, not on my dime. But now they have all my personal information. They can steal your identity. You think you know your name? Nuh-uh, now it is some old woman in Florida tracking you down.
Anyways, one thing that Sony did do correctly is they advised all their customers not to give out personal information to any scammers. They released a statement saying that they were not going to ask for any personal information or any credit card information whatsoever, and so if you got anything like that, that you should not give that information, which should be a given for any logical human being in the first place. But apparently they released this much too late, and massive damage had already been done. However, they did directly say that, first of all, credit card information would not be released, and that the CVV from your card would be impossible for the scammers to get. So, I mean, like, what are we worried about?
Tuesday, April 28th, Sony reveals that on May 4th, one of the most beautiful holidays, may the 4th be with all of you, that their PlayStation Network gaming system will be back up and online. Guaranteed.
However, the next day, the scammers came out with a statement, and they said that they had 2.2 million different accounts that they had hacked. That's personal information, credit card numbers, and CVV numbers. Yeah, those little things that Sony said is impossible for them to get. They claimed that they had them. They also claimed that they attempted to sell all this information back to Sony, and Sony did not take the offer. Sony later also replied to that and said that, first of all, they reiterated the statement that it was impossible for them to have credit card and CVV information, and that they had never been offered the deal to buy back the information, but we don't believe them.
Because guess what is revealed not that long after that? All of the information, all this personal information is not encrypted at all. Anyone with access can read all of this information. Question.
That's a big word. What does encrypted? What does that mean? You idiot. Encrypted. To encrypt information means when you convert the information into a cipher or code, especially to prevent unauthorized access.
Thank you, Stephen, for educating the crowd.
Then, May the 4th, that blessed holiday rolled around. Gamers everywhere were excited for the PlayStation Network to once again be alive. However, nothing happened. So, Sony came out with a statement blaming the online hacktivist group, Anonymous, for all of the hacking that was going on. Theresa, please take it away and explain what Anonymous is.
Some information about Anonymous is, like Dominic said, it is an online hacktivist group. Their logo is the Guy Fawkes mask. You might also recognize this as the white mask with dramatic black eyebrows and blush cheeks from the movie V for Vendetta. So members of Anonymous are impossible to trace. You join Anonymous by hacking into their message boards. So members of Anonymous are many, they are vast, they're everywhere, and you have no idea who they are. So Anonymous quoted in a letter responding to the Sony hack, they said, quote, "It would be considered common knowledge that Anonymous began as a meme or shared belief in 2006. But it was not until 2008 that Anonymous became a true display of power in numbers," end quote. So Anonymous is a group not only based upon their love for computers and hacking, but also shared beliefs. Their beliefs include, but are not limited to, freedom of information, internet freedom, and justice. So an example of a reason why Anonymous would do their hacking is maybe there is a rich guy who, and legal authorities think that he did a felony, but they do not have any information. They don't have enough information to convict him. So Anonymous could hack into that rich guy's data, get the information that they need, post it publicly, so then legal authorities could go and proceed with what they would do. Another example of a hack that Anonymous actually did do was in 2008 when they DDoS'd, direct denial of service, the Church of Scientology. So, Stephen, what is DDoS? And then she says, explanation time. A DDoS attack is a way of preventing actual customers from accessing an online service, like a website, by remotely controlling a large number of computers, which all reach out to the web service at the same time and demand large amounts of data and processing power, and thus overwhelming the servers. So, this seems unlikely that Anonymous would hack into Sony because of a few reasons. One is that if they did do these types of hacks and they were actually after credit card information, we would all be broke. Like, think of all the websites that have information. There's Apple, Netflix, Spotify, Hulu. If Anonymous's goal and what they founded themselves upon was theft, there would be no hope for anyone, and a lot of security systems would change big time. And also, they do have shared beliefs, so that hacking into systems to steal credit cards isn't what they would do. And lastly, like I said, they're computer nerds. So why would they hack into PlayStation Network, a service that they all probably use, and risk it shutting down for weeks on end? It just doesn't seem likely.
Also, rewind to before April, before the scammers attacked PlayStation. Anonymous actually did do a DDoS, or direct denial of service, against Sony. However, they publicly announced that they would stop their DDoS once the hacking started in April. And finally, the last note on Anonymous is that the person who hacked into Sony covered their tracks remarkably well. So why would you cover your tracks if you were just going to leave your calling card saying, I did it? Doesn't really make sense. Plot hole, if you will.
To bring it back to a sad solemn note, May 8th rolls around. Sony has spat on the holiday of May 4th because it is 4 days after they say their services will be back up online. And guess what they revealed to everybody? That it will not be back up online until a few more days. Critics called it the most obvious statement ever stated. It was unbelievable. The information they gave was just mumbo jumbo. Customers were not buying it anymore. They wanted hard proof that Sony was going to pull through.
Well, they did do that. On May 15th, some of PlayStation Network was back online. For example, online gaming, chat, and music streaming were all back on. However, everything else still was not. So, Sony sent out another statement saying that, once again, by the end of May, everything would be fine. Guess what? Everything wasn't fine by the end of May because it wasn't until June 2nd that everything was back online. Just terrible. The final result of all of this hacking and scamming and bad PR was that over the next couple months throughout June and July, all of Sony just went through a massive management shuffling. The people up here were going down here, and the people down here were coming up here. It was
It's like
madness.
a deck of cards. But now that we're done with that long summary explanation, whatever you want to call it, let's get to the real stuff, people. Pros and cons. Let me get a whoop whoop. But we have to remember to give, thank you, we have to give some leeway to Sony because we do have to remember there's technically no good way to handle a hack because a hack is just an overall bad situation. But, pro, Sony gave adequate information about the threat to personal security to the people that needed it the most.
Con, they waited several days before releasing said information, and it really made people angry.
Pro, they took their time to ramp up the security they have. so that another hack couldn't be remade and that they would get all the hacking stuff out of it, no bugs, took their time to really set it up.
Con, it never should have been an issue in the first place because a large company like Sony should have encrypted all of their personal information.
Pro, they made frequent statements, though they didn't have a lot of information. They didn't give a lot of information, but that's because they didn't have a lot of information. But they did play well with the bad hand they were dealt.
However, another con, much of the information that they gave to their customers was overly wordy and didn't really make any sense and didn't really tell us much.
But a final pro is that they gave a big welcome home package to all of their customers and gamers. And it included high-end games that had over an 85% rating on Metacritic or higher. Metacritic, as some of you may or may not know, is the IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes of video games.
It's pretty highly rated. Those are good games. But also, they definitely should have been more consistent with their timelines and maybe even a little bit more honest. And not led poor gaming souls to, hopes dashed upon the ground. Plus, the blog that they used to release most of their information was also a blog that most people had silenced because it was a blog that mostly just showed ads for new games and ads for new PlayStation things.
It was the JP Catholic Student Life page of Sony.
That it was.
So, to further discuss what Sony did well and what they did poorly, let's talk about the fact that they did blame Anonymous. So we already talked a little bit about how it is unlikely that Anonymous did it, and a big reason of that, and Dominic already said this, is because Anonymous claims every hack that they do, and they don't try to hide the fact that it was them. But this hack took so long, it took so long for Sony to figure out who hacked them, and then days later, they, quote, found a message from Anonymous saying that it was them. But they also never publicly shared this message that Anonymous sent them. They were just like, oh, Anonymous did it, and that was kind of it. So why blame Anonymous if Anonymous didn't do it? Probably because it seems like an easy cop-out, since if one person from Anonymous, or 2 or 3 or however many, hacked Sony, since anyone can be anonymous, and anonymous is just kind of like a bunch of people and not really, obviously not identified. If they say, oh, we did it and we're part of Anonymous, then technically Anonymous did do it, and putting this blame on Anonymous causes for no further investigation. So it's kind of easiest on Sony's part to do it. And there's actually a theory that the government hacked Sony and they blamed Anonymous to keep people from further sympathizing with Anonymous. And of course, this is a conspiracy theory, maybe far-fetched in the eyes of some. So hear that with a grain of salt. But it may not have been the best route to blame Anonymous for a few reasons. One is no evidence. Like I said, they said that they got a message from Anonymous, but they never publicly released this message. And Anonymous does claim everything they do. These hackers hid their trace and then left a message a few days later. And of course, you shouldn't really mess with Anonymous because of how much hacking power they have. And of course, we all know that when you're caught in a lie, that's not good. So, did Anonymous do it? We might never know for sure, but we know. We know.
Thank you, Theresa. But the real question is, how has Sony stepped up their game in response to hacking since that last hack? Well, they didn't step up security that much since they actually were hacked again in October of the same year. What is that, like 6 months later? Even less, maybe? But they did respond to it better. Their PR team actually pulled through this time, probably earning what they actually made. But still a little unsteady about the security. But they did handle it a lot better.
And when you look at how other people have handled such scams, such as Yahoo, as they reported in 2016, a hack that happened in 2014 that exposed 200 to 500 million personal information accounts. So, you know, Sony at least wasn't as bad as Yahoo.
That's one thing they're going for them. Well, thank you. Any questions? Yes, you. Stop. Yes, of course I'm single. I'll give you my number later. Okay, please stop. Okay, we must end. I can't handle it anymore. Thank you for those that brought this speech together. From Dom, the pretty boy Boucher. Elisa, please spell my name right, Litke. Theresa, I speak human Girard. And Stephen, technical help, Kelly. Thank you and good night. I love you, San Diego.
Signing off, America.
You can go back to sleep now, class.